ESPN are ruffling some feathers, as always, with their top 10 power ranking. Defenders list, must note, this is centre-back, so does not include, like you were already like the Philip Lambs of the world, who doesn't even play full-back anymore, really. Plays centre midfielder wherever you can use.
He's on if you scroll down on that list, which we'll get to at another point in another clip, he's there.
Yeah, he's there. I mean, he deserves to be included in any defenders list. He is a veteran. Good use of the word. But this list, there's a couple of surprising entries for me, but there's a couple of things that they did do which I loved, which is taking out Vincent Kompany, because I would even struggle to argue that he should have been on the list last year when he was in their top 5.
It was funny because Bleacher Report did a similar list, like maybe 3-4 months ago, and they had Kompany as like number 2, and they put him there for the reason that, like, well, his past history has said that he's one of the best defenders in the world, but obviously if you've been watching any soccer this year...
Well, Per Mertesacker's got a World Cup winners medal, but he doesn't even get my top list of players that should be professional footballers. Rarely. Like, this is what I'm saying. This is why this list is very controversial.
That's why these become debatable. That's why power rankings are always fun to talk about, because obviously everyone is in disagreement.
Yeah.
And it creates a better
And this is why we want you guys to comment throughout, because we love to see what you guys think about this. So number 10, Miranda, the Brazilian Atletico Madrid centre-back, who is a good player. He's formed a partnership with Diego Godin, which is somewhat unbreakable at times. I think this year they've faltered a little bit. Last year they were 2 of the best centre-backs in the world, undoubtedly, taking them to the Champions League final and winning La Liga. They were great together.
And we'll get to more of Diego Godin.
Yeah, Diego Godin is further down the list. He's separated by a few places from his Brazilian counterpart. So Benassia, the new defender, Moroccan defender who plays at centre-back for Bayern Munich, he's much better than Dante, who usually plays at centre-back for Bayern Munich. He's a better partner with Boateng, but people will look at this list. They'll see a couple of Bayern Munich players in there and they'll automatically be like, well, Messi destroyed them. Well, Messi could destroy any defender that has ever been amazing in the game, no matter who they are.
Most of the list is made up of just German defenders.
Well, that's true.
Because they're basically, I know you refer to Kentucky Wildcats basketball as Transformers. I like to refer to the German back 4 as the walking trees from Lord of the Rings.
Yes, and it's partly Germans and partly there's a few Chelsea players that are in there, or maybe... In terms of centre-backs, just one that we'll get to. But you're right, the German back line transcended what everyone expected from defenders in the World Cup. They were so athletic. They were first to the ball. And someone who's in there, which we'll get to as well, is Boateng, another player who people will question for being on this list because he was the brunt of everyone's meme after Messi left him on his arse. But that's what Messi does to everyone. Like, the best defenders are made to look foolish, and that's why I'm not going to sit here and talk about Messi again, because I've already been criticised for my consistent Messi
You're going to sit right there in a few hours and talk about Messi.
I will, no doubt. All right, so we've got Giorgio Chiellini in there at number 8. What do you think about Chiellini in terms of him as a defender?
Well, in terms of what I've watched so far, you've talked about on tactics before that occasionally he's not so great at marking, which happens to be what I always consider to be a major problem, because when he falls into those, when he falls back into the box and he needs to be on his man, and this is, I guess, similar to the American sports way of a man-to-man defense, stick to your guy, he seems to be inconsistent with it.
I think it's more to do with his age and his laziness in the box sometimes. But one thing that sets Chiellini apart from everyone else is he'll put his head and often his shoulder, as far as seen that.
Into the mouth of another player?
Yeah, he'll put his head where other defenders won't even put their feet. And that's what happened against Real Madrid recently. Burst all of his eye open because he's just one of those old school defenders, the Terry Butchers of the England world, where he'll walk around with the bandage around his head, which is very fitting because he puts his head in those places and he's not scared to put his body on the line.
And also, I mean, we were talking with Pablo Alcini yesterday that the Serie A is I guess, an old school form of defending in general. It's tougher, it's more challenging, they're more physical, which, hey, for all intents and purposes, watching more physical soccer or football is more entertaining.
It's always more entertaining. We need more physicality, because now we're going to go into more of the Spanish leagues. Number 7 is Thiago Silva. I'm not even going to mention that right now, because he shouldn't be at number 7. He should be ranking by 1, 2, or 3. If PSG advance further, you need to take into account who he plays alongside. David Luiz, who in my mind is barely a defender. He's a better defensive midfielder. All his attributes, David Luiz as a defender, are attributes that people would say is good for a midfielder. Oh, he's great at shooting. He's got a great free kick on him. He's a defender. He doesn't got any of the main attributes that you should consider to be one of the best. So he's not on this list. But Thiago Silva should be higher because he has to partner with him. And he has to drag him along with him when he plays at the back. So Thiago Silva is at number 7. Should be definitely lower. Rafael Varane is at number 6, which is a little surprising as well, considering he's not even a starting defender for Real Madrid. He's been playing more so at centre-back because Ramos has been moved into midfield to mark up some of the more dangerous players, like he did against Atletico Madrid, like they tried against Juventus, it didn't work.
Yeah, but what it seems like when things are going wrong for Real Madrid, they always change up their formations, and that formation usually includes Miranda until they finally find a run of form again, and then they sub him out, or they don't. They either sub him out or they won't play him in the beginning of the game.
Is he still not considered as their best centre-back? So I don't understand why he's number 6 on this list.
Yeah, there's another guy on this list who's much better.
Yeah, he's much better than him. So Jerome Boateng is number 5.
Which we mentioned before, right?
I think he should be 3. I think Thiago Silva should be 2, and I think Jerome Boateng should be 3. And I'll tell you why, because that guy, he helped Germany win a World Cup, and he was phenomenal in the World Cup final. And that is why, just because Messi leaves him on his arse, doesn't mean he's a bad defender.
But then, so the argument then I guess comes up in this, not to transition over to strikers, but Diego Costa had a pretty bad World Cup, and then came out red hot in the first half of the Premier League season.
People are like, oh, you should be at the top of the list.
What's more important in your rankings for defending? How you're playing with your club or how you're playing for your country?
I think it's an overall perspective
just
of it.
Taking all into account.
And Bayern Munich are going to win the Bundesliga, sorry.
I think they've already won,
they're in the semi-final of the Champions League. As much as they conceded a lot of goals against Barcelona, it's a successful season. He's a good defender.
It's one leg of one game.
Yeah, and if there's anyone that can turn around, it's Bayern, but by the time this clip goes up, they've probably already lost, and me and you look like idiots. Sergio Ramos, number 4. I'm talking about like putting 5 or 6. I don't think it should be 4. What I want to take is ESPN's list and just scrumple up and mix it and make my
make your own.
And not as much make my own, just because their list is pretty accurate. Just the positions have to be moved, because now they have John Terry at 3, which is a pretty good position. Gerard Piqué at 2. I think he's number 1 this season. I think at Barcelona he's really upped his game.
Sergio Ramos.
No, Ramos is going to be middle. He's not the best centre. He's playing centre midfield at the moment. Pepe's not even on this list, and Pepe's probably Real Madrid's best centre back.
I thought Pepe's. I remember during the World Cup there was a lot of hate towards Pepe.
Because he's nuts. He's bipolar. Right. It's not because he's the bad defender. He's mental.
That impacts decision making, of course, which does impact how you play.
I've got people here that sit here that know exactly what I was like as a player, and the best players are bipolar. Trust me, they're emotional. But him, yes, when it hinders his game, I won't believe that. But in terms of raw defensive ability, he's great.
So I agree with that, because this does. Well, I don't know if I agree with that. Because my whole point being is that in basketball, and I'm going to bring it over to basketball real quick, is people like Dennis Rodman, fucking crazy.
Yeah.
Like bipolar. Ron Artest at one point
crazy.
Should have been locked up.
Beat up a fan.
Beat up a fan, has changed his name 14 different times. But they're 2 great defenders, so I guess I'm counter-arguing my own point.
But the number 1 on this list is Diego Godin. If this was last season, then yes, I would say is. But now, Atletico Madrid, out of the Champions League, not going to win La Liga. I don't think he's the best defender in the world this season. I don't think he's number 1. I think he's still in the top 5. But I think people need to start giving Gerard Piqué more credit this season. I think people faulted him as a defender last year. He's really bucked up his antics this year. He's been good at the back for Barcelona. He's been the one holding it together. And the other one who's in this list who isn't even there at the moment because he's not technically a centre-back, Javier Mascherano. I think he's probably the best man-marking centre defender. He marks players like no other, like Lewandowski.
Godin has been everything I've watched and read, and you tacticized, I made that word up, is that Diego Godin is fantastic marker.
He is. He's fantastic at marking, and he works very well with the defenders around him and makes everyone very structured. It's almost like he's got the invisible rope that I talk about, and he just controls it. He makes sure all his defenders are in line with him. But in terms of defending one-on-one, in this example, I think that Mascherano should be there as well, top 5. So that is ESPN's list. I have mixed it up many a times. I'm going to throw up a graphic right now who are, after all that kerfuffle, just made up that word, I'll order it and who I think is the best defenders and who I think is the worst. But you can tell what I have my opinions on it there. I think that Boateng needs to be higher on the list. Right. Ramos needs to be lower on the list. Diego Godin needs to be a couple of spaces lower.
Thiago Silva needs to be elsewhere somewhere. And
yes, and we'll just add in someone in there as well just to make it interesting. But we want to know what you guys think. The bottom line, the big question is who's the best defender in the world? Best defender outright, whether he's technically a midfielder like Mascherano but plays centre-back. Is he the best in the world? Is it Piqué? Is it Boateng? Is it Godin? We want to know what you guys think. Do you believe it? You're going to throw this paper somewhere. I know you're going to throw it. Got it. Thanks again and subscribe.